Hey guys, welcome back. Today's topic is the money spell. So you see this number right here. This is the United States national debt, and it is climbing by the second. See, right now it's over $37 trillion dollars. That's trillion with a T. And here's the kicker. The debt per taxpayer right here, this section, that number is your personal share. This system doesn't keep the number ticking for decoration. It's a living meter, like literally on how much our future labor is expected to extract from you. So the question is, what backs this debt and what is the collateral? The answer is not gold and it is not silver. It's not land. It's you. You are the collateral here. So, really, what happened is in 1933, the United States hit rock bottom financially, and the Great Depression, we've all heard of it, it was in full swing, and the banks were collapsing, and people couldn't withdraw their own money. So, on March 9th, Congress passed the Emergency Banking Relief Act, which gave the president total control over banking. And just days before, on March 6th, FDR had declared a nationwide bank holiday, shutting down the entire banking system. So the real turning point came with House Joint Resolution 192, where this suspended the gold standard. Okay, it made it illegal for United States citizens to demand payment in gold. So from that point forward, the full faith and credit of the United States was no longer backed by precious metals. Okay, it was backed by the only thing that the government had left in unlimited supply, the productive capacity of its people. So, in plain English, your future taxes became the collateral. So, really, registration, we already know that it transfers the title, and that's where the birth certificate comes into the picture, right? So, yep, legal terms, we're not recording, we're registering and putting the title into the official ledger. And yeah, so birth registration works the exact same way as the 42 USC Section 242K, which creates the Federal Vital Statistics Cooperative Program. So, I mean, we already know the hospitals send in the data to the state files it, the data ultimately flows into the federal system, and then, the parents get the certified copy of the birth certificate, never the original, just the original becomes state property and the asset that the state now holds. So this is where the Uniform Commercial Code comes in, where under UCC Section 8-102, a security includes any certificate of interest or participation in a profit sharing agreement. So let's compare to what that means. So essentially, it's issued by a recognized authority. Check. It identifies a unique entry. Check. It's tied to a predictable revenue stream, which is your future taxable labor. Check. Capable of being pledged as collateral. Check. So once your birth record is registered, it is digitized, indexed, and assigned a tracking number, which is a CUSIP number. So a CUSIP number is a unique identifier, which is the identifier of stocks and bonds that are traded, okay? So it makes it compatible with the financial market system. So you actually can order your long form birth certificate, get it authenticated, and get the CUSIP number and see where it's being traded and sold on the market. So it literally parallels the negotiable securities. It's undeniable. And I've done this myself. I'm holding proof right now that I've gotten my own birth certificate authenticated on the state and federal level. And it states right here, plain as day, I certify that this document hereunto annexed is under the seal of the state of Utah, and that such seals is/are entitled to full faith and credit. Right there. Full faith and credit right there attached to my birth certificate with the key slip number. So there you have it. It's not a conspiracy. So essentially, where did the transformation from baby into taxpayer come from? So it's really quite simple. It's really started with the social security number, which I shared with you guys earlier with 20 CFR section 422.103, where, once that number was issued, the Social Security Administration opens what's called an earnings record in your name. So this is the lifetime ledger of all taxable income paid to your Social Security number. So every paycheck, every self-employment report, every W-2, the IRS uses to determine how much you owe, and the Treasury uses it to project your future tax revenue. So in the government's own financial statements, like the Treasury Statement of Social Insurance, future tax collections are listed as current assets when they're calculating how much debt they can take on. And you're literally on the budget line. That's literally you. So I want to shift gears just for a second, talking from the collateralization to taxes. I'll come back to collateralization in a minute, but I want to talk about taxes for a minute. I know I've been told my entire life that paying taxes is just part of being a good citizen, that it's your duty, that it's the price of freedom, that it's what pays for the roads and pays for running the country, But have you ever asked who exactly is a taxpayer? And more importantly, when did you agree to become one? So essentially, the US taxpayer, let's Let's screen share again. Let's pull this up here. So 26 USC, which is the IRS section, the IRS code in the Code of Federal Regulations here. A taxpayer means any person subject to internal revenue tax. So that's kind of general. Who is subject to internal revenue tax? Well, it's a person. And now we know that the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, a trust, estate, partner, association, company, or corporation. So again, a person, which is an artificial entity. Okay. So we know that the person isn't just a man or a woman. It's in law, it means quite literally that, an artificial entity. So here's the trick. The tax code doesn't automatically apply to everyone born on the land. It applies to persons, obviously. So legal entities created or recognized by the state. So when the code says United States, just like I was showing you earlier, now let's go to the IRS code, what United States says. So, yeah, see, the term United States, when used in a geographical sense, includes only the states and the District of Columbia. So we're thinking like, okay, it includes the states. But let's look right here what state means. The term state shall be construed to include the District of Columbia. So, I mean, explicitly says it's just the District of Columbia. So if you're not a resident of District of Columbia, you're not a taxpayer. So I'm going to entertain the idea or the argument for a second that maybe it's just implied. Okay. Well, law explicitly says that it must be stated. So I want to take a quick shift to another section in the IRS section, but this section specifically applies to petroleum tax. In this petroleum tax section, it says the term United States means the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. Any possession of the United States, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. So when we're talking about income tax here and what a taxpayer is, and it is just the District of Columbia. It wasn't like, oh shoot, we forgot to put the 50 states. Where here, when it, goes to petroleum tax, it is very explicit. So it's not by accident. Okay. It is not an accident. So we have to get rid of that assumption that they just forgot. So I also want to talk about or go over the definition of employee. Um, so employee, for the purposes of this chapter in the IRS codes, it includes an officer, employee, or elected official of the United States, a state, or any political subdivision thereof, or the District of Columbia, or any agency or instrumentality of any one or more of the foregoing. The term employee also includes an officer of a corporation. So, really, essentially, it applies an employee is a federal employee, okay? And so, if you remember when I was saying earlier how the Social Security makes you an employee to the corporation, and you have your Social Security card that you sign as an employee, this is when you became an employee. Okay, you became a federal employee. And then to extend it beyond this specific thing right here that says the term employee also includes an officer of a corporation. So to take it a step further, when you elect to be taxed as an S corp and pay yourself a W-2, now you are an employee to that corporation and you fit the definition of this employee. So I don't know how many my CPA personally recommended that we become an S corp, and honestly, that's like the worst idea because now you're being taxed for paying employee taxes through FICA and or FICA, I can't remember, whatever, payroll taxes once to pay yourself, and then you're paying taxes again in your W-2. Genius. Like, of course, they're telling CPAs that that's like the smartest thing to do, and then telling all the people that that's the best way to go. And it also elects you into being an employee according to their definitions here. So yeah. Now, so now you're wondering, I'm sure, how these rules apply if you're actually living in one of the 50 states and you don't live in the District of Columbia. So they get you to act as if you are a US person by using the social security number, signing the IRS forms, and claiming US residency or identifying yourself with their terminology. Because as I said before, you have District of Columbia. Subcorporation of District of Columbia is State of Utah. Subcorporation of that is City of Salt Lake City or Salt Lake City, however you'd say that. Um, it's getting late for me. So my mind's getting going crazy here. But anyway, that's how they trick you, right? And then tricking you into contracts, into signing something and saying, hey, this is me. So once you do, you've essentially just stepped into their jurisdiction voluntarily, at least in their eyes, okay? So let's pull back the curtain even further with the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. I'm going to pull that up here. Where it essentially says no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters, or marquee and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin and tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. So really just explicitly says only gold and silver coin can be used as lawful tender for payment for debts. Okay, so in 1933, when Congress passed the Emergency Banking Act and FDR removed the gold from circulation, from that day forward, you haven't been paid any money. You've been paid in Federal Reserve notes, which, according to 12 USC 411, calls obligations of the United States and redeemable in lawful money, which I'll pull that up for you as well. Yeah, Federal Reserve notes to be issued at the discretion of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for the purpose of making advances of Federal Reserve banks through the Federal Reserve agents as hereafter set forth and for no other purpose are authorized. The said note shall be obligations of the United States and shall be receivable by the national and member banks and Federal Reserve banks, and for all taxes, customs, and other public dues. They shall be redeemed in lawful money on demand at the Treasury Department of the United States in the city of Washington, District of Columbia, or at any Federal Reserve Bank. So that means the cash in your pocket isn't anything owed. It's an IOU. It is a debt note. An IOU for the thing owed. So take a moment and think about that for a minute. How do you pay debts with a debt note? Okay. And since they've removed the gold and silver from domestic circulation, you can never collect substance. You can only transfer more debt. So if you think your taxes are paying for the roads and the schools, you need to think again. The Grace Commission report, which is an executive order that was issued by President Ronald Reagan as an investigation, it was focusing on on eliminating waste and inefficiency in the United States government. But the report told Congress in 1984 that none of this was going towards paying the debt, the national debt. So I need to find the quote here. Um, gosh. So yeah, essentially it says 100% of what is collected is absorbed solely by the interest of the federal debt and the government transfer payments. Not one nickel is spent on the services taxpayers expect from government. So your income tax is servicing debt to a private banking cartel, not to the funding, not to the republic. So, of course, too, even the IRS itself has headquarters in Puerto Rico. And the IRS, with its own DUNS number, is its own private business too, right? And our money is going offshore the second it's going into their pockets, let alone the Federal Reserve, which is not federal. It's not federal. It's as federal as the Federal Express, okay, in its own private business. Anyway, that's how all our money is going offshore. It's not going towards running the government and or running the country, and that's literally explicitly what it said in the Grace report right there. So, yeah, essentially, so what does this have to do with you being a taxpayer? So, treasury bonds are promises to pay. And the full faith and credit beyond those promises means that the government is confident and can collect enough taxes from its citizens to cover them. So, those bonds are bought by central banks, they're bought by pension funds, private investors, international bodies like the International Monetary Fund and the Bank for International Settlements. Even the Bank of International Settlements has openly referred to human capital as economic assets. And you are an asset. Your babies, they are the rollover investment and they keep the machine running. And for proof, I actually have a friend that invests in chattel paper, these bonds, and makes a lot of money doing it. So it's not a conspiracy. So really, this is why the system fights so hard to keep you in it. If the collateral opts out, the debt structure completely collapses. So they build layers of dependency, of course. They do this by public schooling to shape you into a good, compliant worker, censoring information and implanting fear in you that you're afraid to go against the machine. They do this through like professional licensing to tether your income to state authority and social programs to keep you tied to their benefits. They have people afraid of like, well, what if I don't have my state government insurance? What's going to happen? The what ifs, which really just tie you to the corrupt medical system, which really just keep you a forever client because they're in bed with big pharma. That's really the whole business model. It's the whole strategy. So, yeah, they just keep you in fear of not being able to obtain certain things like licenses and jobs without the birth certificate, even telling you you can't get the passport without the birth certificate. All this stuff, it's actually a lie. It's all an illusion, but they keep you in fear that keeps you within this system. So, really, it's not about education, safety, or compassion. This government is not doing this because they're like benevolent institutions wanting to give you benefits. They're doing it so they can secure their revenue stream. So really breaking the spell, looking back on that debt clock that I was showing you earlier, they call that full faith and credit. I call it the money spell, and it works because you believe the name on the birth certificate is you, because you believe that you must carry its debts. But the first step in breaking the spell is knowing first that exists, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't, and then when you know what you know, can you, in good conscience, register your baby over to that machine, making them human collateral for the national debt? That's the real question. So some people will argue out there that there are benefits, to the straw man, all that stuff. But again, with all the evidence, the clear evidence that our hands and legs, our human bodies, our labor, our future energy is being siphoned to back the national debt, that the only thing that you can't leverage is your time and your energy that is being siphoned. Are we going to put that debt on our babies, on our future babies? Me personally, absolutely not. I could not do that. I couldn't do that knowing what I knew. So now you guys get to decide and make your decisions on whether you register your future babies and put that debt over their heads.